Welcome to the Mindful Bird State with Bird Mentor. So today we're going to be exploring the ideas of the roads and the footpaths and the rivers that the birds and other wildlife travel upon, and how we can become more aware of them and connect more deeply with them. And this practice was inspired by a hornet that I met this morning, and I'll share its story in just a little bit. All right, let's get started. All right, everybody, find a comfortable spot wherever you are. Inside or outside is just fine. Like I'm inside today. I try to be outside as much as possible, but today I'm in. And let yourself just settle in for a moment. Today we're going to begin by feeling the sensations on our skin. So we don't always start here, but today will be a nice place to begin. So just noticing what sensations you experience on your skin right now. If there's not much of a breeze, that's okay. You can just see if maybe you can feel the sun on your skin, or maybe you can even just feel where your clothing is touching your skin. And just notice what that feels like. Noticing that place where your outer body connects with your inner body. So start to move inward just a little bit, feeling that next layer in your skin. So we have the outer layer and our little hairs that sense and pick up um, all the sensations that are coming toward us. And then that next layer going deeper starts to go inside. And so just let yourself almost sink into your own body, into your own experience right now. And you're going to go deeper within yourself. And I want you to find your breath. Just find your own rhythm. What is your rhythm of your breath in this moment? Noticing all the places that the breath touches within your body. So again, it's another one of those areas where the outward world meets the inner world. So we're bringing in the breath of air into our lungs, into our bodies, and noticing how that outer world meets our inner world right now. And just take a moment to experience that for yourself. As if with each breath, you're meeting a new friend, right? Each breath is new. It brings new information into your body. So greet it like it's a new friend. Imagine welcoming that breath into your body, like it's coming to a party that you're hosting. Great. And while we're in that area of our breath, our heart resides in this region as well. And so let's shift our attention now to the rhythm of our heart, noticing how it's unique and maybe a little bit different than our breath. And some of you may be able to feel your heartbeat. Some of you might even be able to hear it in your ears. If you can't, you can touch a part of your body, maybe even just your chest. You can also touch your neck, wherever it is that you can feel your heartbeat. If you're unable to feel it just without touching anything else, just become present to that right now. Good work, everybody. So now with your feet firmly planted on the ground beneath you, or maybe you're cross-legged, I want you to imagine that in your next breath, that maybe the sun is shining on you, maybe it's not, but let's just imagine the sun is always up there. So imagine the sun is shining down on you right now, and you're going to bring in that breath of warm sunshine into your body and let it just filter through your bones, through your systems, through your muscles, all the way down to your toes, and just let it touch the earth as it leaves your body. And you can go ahead and do that one or two more times. Just allowing yourself to be bathed in that light. And now, if you choose, you can close your eyes for just a moment if you feel like you're in a safe, comfortable place. I want you just to explore the world around you with your ears. Just as we had introduced or gotten to meet and welcome the breath into our bodies, go ahead and connect with the sounds around you, again, as if you're meeting old or new friends. Acknowledge each new sound that you hear as unique and individual in itself. Just noticing if there are any locations on the landscape around you that are sort of, I guess we can call them blind spots or quiet spots. Maybe they're not so quiet, but they're just areas that you don't bring your attention to as much. So see if you can find those places where you maybe weren't focusing your attention on, and draw your attention there and see if you can find a sound in that location. Also, go ahead and noticing how far your listening, your hearing was stretching. Did you stop at a certain point in your listening? And if you did, see if you can stretch just a little bit further. What's the furthest sound you can hear right now? Wonderful. So when you're ready, just in a nice gentle way, you can go ahead and open your eyes and allow your gaze to fall on something that's a little distance away from you. And pick one point to focus on. Find one focal point. And once you've found that, keep your eyes locked on that point, but then begin to soften your vision slowly and slowly, slowly, further and further out from that point. So even though you're looking forward, your eyes and your vision are becoming softer and softer and more expanded and further and further and further out. And again, some of you know how this goes, but your vision may become a bit blurry when you do this practice. This is something that we call owl eyes or soft vision. And just go with the blur. Don't fight it. Just see what it's like to allow your vision to become blurry. And just notice what comes into your awareness right now. Nice. Some of you may have picked up on some subtle motions and movements you might not have seen before. Just really allowing the gentleness of the earth to show herself to you right now. The softer things that we might not, or that we may overlook a little bit easier when we're going about our day. So just welcome those in right now. And as you're doing that, take another deep breath in, but this time with the intention of smelling the air, noticing what scents are on the breeze this morning. Good work. So just stay in this softened vision while I tell you a little story to begin our practice today. So this morning when I went out to ask for what we were going to do today, I came in contact with what looked to me to be a bald-faced hornet. I'm not too sure, but it was quick and that was okay with me. It was a black and white hornet-looking creature. And what drew my attention to it actually was not just that it was a hornet, was the fact that I had seen it yesterday. So I've been staying at this place here for a couple of days now. And yesterday I went out onto this deck and I almost came in contact with this, I think the same, maybe a different one, creature. And today when I went out there, it zoomed past me and it went kind of around the corner of this post. And I thought, huh, that's interesting. I think I saw you yesterday in the same spot, doing the same thing. And so I looked around the corner and I looked on the post and there's this little hole with some white stuff to kind of that has dripped out of it. I thought, oh, interesting. So I didn't see the hornet anymore and I didn't see it leave. So I thought, this must be your hole. I wonder if this is where you live. And so that just got me thinking, that gave me the idea for our practice today. And that is to get a little bit closer to those ones that we share home with. And I want us to think about that for just a moment, the idea of home and some of the words that we use to describe our friends in nature. So we often talk about when birds are mating, for instance, or the horses are mating, right? But do we ever talk about ourselves that way? Do we say, hey, I just mated with this guy last night? Like we don't say that, Or if we talk about, others in our race, for instance, we don't talk about our species, So there are words that we use that sometimes can separate us from our friends in nature. And for whatever reason, they're different. We use different terms for the wild ones than we do for ourselves. And so I just want you to think about that today, or just have that in the back of your mind. I don't want you to think too much today. I want you just to be present. But, the idea of the word territory also, right? So I'm thinking of that hornet's territory, is it its territory or is that just its home, Would I say I'm going to go to the grocery store and then I'm going to come back to my territory after that, Again, that's like just sort of different mindset that we place on the wild creatures. So today, as we're looking out and listening out in our landscape around us, let's connect with those that are our neighbors. And we're going to do that by first beginning by looking, first of all, identifying who they are. So we're just going to spend a few moments listening and looking for those friends that are familiar to us, the ones that we see maybe every day, whether it's a plant or a bird or an animal, maybe it's a cat, whatever it may be. Like, who are the ones that come by on a regular basis? So let's just begin by looking for those friends. And then I'll give you some further direction in just a moment. Let's spend a couple minutes just being with those ones in our yard. Okay, great. So why don't you go ahead and choose one that either is one you have a particular fascination with this morning, or one that you think might stick around for a few minutes that you can observe. And what I want you to do is go ahead and just see if you can notice, and maybe you already know what it's, we'll call it a footpath. We're going to begin by exploring different sort of roads that these friends of ours use. And so I want you to look for the footpath, that path that, is this critter's, it's what it uses. Think about like maybe if you're going to go from your house to your garden or your house to your garage or your shed, just those things that are close to our homes. So not very far, but this is a path that this one uses to go, let's say from the bird feeder to its favorite tree, right? That kind of a thing. So I want you to choose one of your friends and observe it, or if it's gone and you can't watch it anymore, I want you to think about where you've seen it go, where its favorite places are, those familiar, common places on the landscape. And just let yourself play with this for the next couple of minutes. Okay, great. So now we're going to stretch ourselves or stretch our awareness of these friends of ours a little bit further. So, again, if you can still watch this one that you're observing, that's wonderful. And maybe you can ask yourself next, so what's the road that this one uses? So let's say like it would be your house to the grocery store, for instance, like something that's still familiar but not too far outside of your neighborhood, right? So it's kind of like the road that you take within your neighborhood. So go ahead and even if you can't see that one that you were tracking, I want you to imagine it. So you know where its footpath is, but then where does it go after that? So once that, let's say, chickadee or nuthatch has stashed that seed from your feeder to the tree, where does it go after that? And how far away does it travel? And does it always use or often use the same path, the same road? So, and if you don't know, then try to follow one right now. See if you can find it. And while you're exploring this, you can also ask, does it often or always come from the same direction? So when you see it approaching this path or this road, or when it's on this road, is it often coming from one direction and then leaving from the same direction? Or does it change all the time? Is it always different? Beautiful. And so the next layer we're going to add on to this is the idea of the rivers in the sky. So imagining a much larger trail, much larger path, and one that's used by many individuals. So, and this could be on the ground. Let's say you're thinking of a mammal right now and you were following a mammal. Are there trails on the ground, or if you're thinking of birds, in the sky that multiple different individuals use, different kinds of different races of critters um, that use the same river? Are they all jumping in this river and traveling back and forth on it? And if so, what direction? What direction do they typically head? Which direction does this river typically flow, let's say? Also say whether or not you can currently see them moving in this way. Just, I imagine that most of you, especially if you've been in your place for a while, have an instinctive knowing of that trail. So just, you can even close your eyes if you want to, and just imagine the different birds that you've seen moving about, or the different mammals you've seen moving about, and where they often do that. And then just for our last couple of minutes, I'd like you to sort of flip-flop. So if you've been imagining or watching a bird, I want you to think about or imagine something else. So whether it's a mammal, like a cat, a dog, a fox, whatever it might be, or an insect even. You can think about an insect. And if you've been watching or thinking about a mammal, then think about a bird, or imagine and try and look for a bird right now. So same questions we were asking ourselves, do that for the opposite kind of critter, one that's either in the sky or on the ground. And really put yourself in that animal's body. Imagine walking. Imagine, like, where would you go? Where would you want to move if you were going to go from one place to another? Okay, good work, everybody. So take the next moment to offer a blessing or gratitude to the ones that you had interacted with today, the ones that either showed up or the ones that you remember and have gotten to know on your land. All right, good work, everybody. So go ahead and bring your time to a close. You can wrap your session now for yourself, and if anyone needs to head out, you're welcome to do so. Thank you for coming. And if you'd like to stay for our chat at the end, please do. And I'll invite you all to turn your video on now if you can. And again, if not, that's totally fine. So, who would like to share about their experience this morning? Anything come up for you? Any awarenesses that were either new or just something you want to share with us all? You just put your hand up if you want to share. Yeah, Nadine, please, welcome. Hi.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. I really enjoyed this. I'm looking out my windows here, and so the goldfinch was what I started with, and I couldn't see some of the further neighborhood roads, but I'm curious, and that will sit in my mind. Um, and but although I was in trying to imagine into that a little, I was thinking of the hummingbirds that zip around and noticing, the different directions. And I feel like I have more of a sense of them in that kind of bigger space. And then at the very end, I was switching to the bunny rabbits in my, which are plentiful this year. And that was really interesting because I was, I don't have any, they just kind of come and go in all different directions. And I'm there, and I was even kind of like, well, where do they sleep? And in some way, I was feeling a little unsettled about just kind of how out there they are. But then I was like, oh, well, that's me. I don't want to be that out there. Maybe it's actually really amazing to just kind of be anywhere. And yeah, so and I'm also a little more curious about them. But yeah, so that was my journey.
Nadine, thank you so much. I love all the questions that it brought up for you and like the unanswered questions. It's so fun. And I agree, like when I've had experiences with bunnies before, it's sort of like they just appear. It's like, you're doing your thing in your day, you're washing your dishes, whatever, and all of a sudden, like you didn't see it before and now there it is. It's like there's the bunny right there. And like it's kind of always there, but then it's not. And like yeah, they're really interesting, and I love that they've drawn your attention right now, and just curious sort of what that is for you, just to track that. And the hummingbirds are also an interesting one too because of their movements being so unique in the bird world. And so they are an interesting one to track the patterns of and sort of their roads that they follow because it seems like they don't have any because they can go this way and that way and whatever, but they do. So yeah, I love that you're tapping into those as well. Yeah, right on. Thanks so much for sharing. Really appreciate that. Yeah, sweet. Who else would like to share? All right, Joy, go for it.
Well, I started off with a hummingbird as well, but it didn't stick around very long. So right next to the hummingbird feeder, there's a little feeder that I got set up with peanuts in it. And it's called the nut bar. It's very cute. It's got little benches in the front that the squirrels and chipmunks come and sit on. So I had two chipmunks, and so I turned my attention to those. And they are, of course, very territorial and aggressive towards one another. But it seemed as though they were taking turns almost in coming from one side of the garage and then going back, and then the other one was coming from the other side and coming back. And they did interact at one point and sort of chased each other a little bit. And then when I switched my attention to a blue jay that came down, I usually feed them earlier in the morning. this one came and was trying to get the peanut from the feeder that was out there for the chipmunks, but really just couldn't. It was struggling and struggling to get a peanut. I wasn't sure if the chipmunks had emptied the whole feeder or if there was some left and he just couldn't get into it. And so I was thinking, well, how frustrating that must be for that blue jay that's been watching these chipmunks, and now it's his turn and he can't get them. And when the chipmunk came back, there were still obviously some peanuts in there. So the poor blue jay, I think he flew away in disgust, but I felt kind of bad for him. I have to put some more out where he can reach them as soon as this is over. So that's my story for this morning. Thank you.
Nice story. Yeah, and I'm kind of curious with your jay, like thinking about the roads the jay travels. Can you imagine that in your mind right now, like where the jay usually comes from and where it goes to? So when it gets its nut, like before it gets its nut, does it often land in the same tree? And then when it gets its nut, does it go somewhere is it the same pattern or is it always kind of different for the jay?
It comes down to the same tree usually, but they go off in different directions.
Mhm.
So usually there's one I think that's probably more usual than the others, but they go in different places. I've seen that in the past. I couldn't really see that this morning, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll have to pay more attention in future to where they actually go. Thank
Yeah,
you.
right on. Yeah, sure, sure. Thanks, Joy. Appreciate that. Great. Right, who else wants to share their story? Yeah, Anne, please.
I was watching a red-bellied woodpecker on, we've got a hanging platform feeder, and it would just disappear behind the tree, get something. And they spent a lot of time looking at the tray today. And my husband's usually the one who puts the stuff out there in these feeders. And, I'm watching, he goes back and then he flew off later. And then a red-headed woodpecker came down, stopped at the tray, and then just took off screaming and yelling and complaining. And I thought, maybe the tray's empty, maybe, they cleaned it out. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I would like to watch them. So I did leave and the tray is full, and I'm just wondering, maybe they were looking and it wasn't full of the broken seeds and all that was left were the hard to get at ones. Were they go in the red bellied was back quick? Was he putting it in his cupboard? Was he stocking up someplace? Was he eating? Because I couldn't see what he was doing. Was he just coming to the grocery store or was he eating at a restaurant? And then I thought, here I am putting human things on the birds again. But it's just their different reactions at this feeder and why somebody was upset and mad and somebody else seemed to be getting enough. Maybe they were out of his brand of sunflowers. I don't.
Yeah, and out of curiosity, like, was the redheaded mad, or was that just its call? Is that a communication call, or was it like
It
a
was a lot and loud. It was not just like a call, but and then he flew off. So maybe he was telling somebody else, come here. This is where we're eating that. Oh, I don't want to eat at the pizza place again.
yeah?
It's,
Yeah, I
trying to
mean,
tell.
just thinking about like woodpecker calls, like in general, how would you describe like just a generic woodpecker call?
But this guy was, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
kept going and then
And
flew away.
is that how they usually are? Like you typical is it red-headed or red-bellied woodpecker that you saw?
I've got them both. The
Both.
redheaded is
Okay.
just, yeah, we're excited about the redheaded one.
Yeah.
Yeah, really excited because we normally see those just occasionally in the woods, and he's here at the house now. So,
So
yeah,
is that the typical vocalization of a red-headed woodpecker, or is that
no,
something?
no,
No.
no.
Okay.
Usually it's
Okay.
a I can't describe it. It's a quack, just a single call, and this was a cacophony.
Okay.
Just yeah, he was carrying on. And that's why then I'm looking, and it could have been the cat. Maybe the cat came out on the back porch.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, lots of questions. This is great. I
Right.
love it, Anne. I love it. Right
But
on.
then I thought, here I am putting human traits on the animals again. But
Yeah.
that's why we get good stories.
Exactly. And also, I think you bring up a good point. Like in some ways, by having terms that separate us from nature, by calling them species, by saying they're mating, by doing those things, it does keep us separate, in that way where we're not overlaying our own emotions and thoughts onto them, but it keeps us separate from them also, so it's sort of a both. It's what I used to experience with photography when I used to do more photography with people in nature. It was like both for me, where it felt like it separated me from what I was doing because there was this thing in between me and whatever I was looking at. But also it drew me in deeper because I was looking for the colors and the light and the like composition and everything that I wouldn't just as I'm walking down a trail normally, you know. So I was pulled deeper into the experience, but I also was separate from the experience. So I feel like these words that we use, they can do both for us in many ways, right? I hadn't considered that until you said that. Yeah. Sweet, thank you. Anyone else? Linda, did you almost have your hand up before? Yeah, go for it. And then Susie, please.
Okay. Yeah, speaking of the words, I had a light bulb go off this morning when you differentiated between territory and home. I've always thought about the wildlife that live here, around here. It's their territory. But there's a huge difference if I think of it as their home rather than their territory in my mind. That's a big shift for me. And so I thank you for that, because I was thinking, okay, there's wildlife and some domestic life, and the bird life, birds that are here, and this is their home. They're here year round. They nest here. They probably sleep here frequently, like the birds, you know, and I don't see them, or I'm not sure where they are at night. And then there's others that it isn't really their home. They don't breed here. Well, there I am using the words. They don't have their young here. They don't raise their young here. They bring their young here. And they come through here. The predators, you know, come through here. So I started thinking about that, and I realized that there's all kinds of trails out in the meadows around where I live. And it's usually the deer that make the first path. They're like the pioneer. And this is their home in many respects, because they will have their young here. They hide their young here. They bring their young into the fenced part of the yard so they have plenty to eat. They eat all my flowers. So, you know, it is their home. And they make the paths and use the paths, and they're here year round. And then there's the coyotes that come through at night. They thankfully don't raise their young here. But they come through here fairly frequently, and they follow those paths. And the raccoons follow the paths, but they don't have their young here either. It's not like they're here all year. They seem to have a 7-day cycle. The raccoons do. I see the raccoons at night 7 days. Every 7 days they seem to come through. At this time of year during the winter, I don't know. It all gets cattywampus. But anyway, it just got me thinking about, you know, the patterns and the habits and who has young here, and who's here year round, and that this is their home, and that others use this as their territory but don't necessarily make it their home. I know where the coyote den is, and it's not here, so I'm grateful for that. But anyway, it was very interesting to think about it. It was a real shift for me to think the difference between home and territory, and raising your young, and breeding. And so thank you. That really shifted me. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can say you're welcome in some ways, but I feel like sort of gratitude to this hornet, you know, that planted the idea in my mind this morning. So thank you. Awesome. Susie, you were next. Thanks.
Yeah, so earlier this summer, I noticed a hole in this wood here, and I had a friend tell me that, that must be a carpenter wasp, and so my husband wanted to get rid of it right away. I said, no, that's the home for some for some wasp. It's probably going to have its young in there. I don't know much about insects. So he left it. And so this morning, when I came out here to sit down. That wasp came by and in front of me, went under the stairs and over to a home. So, and it did that 3 times while I've been sitting here. It came from the same direction. I wouldn't have thought of that until you said, notice which way they're coming from, which way they go. So it would come in front of me, just this far away, and go down under the steps, and then it would leave from behind me, behind my chair. So, and then after I started trying to find a mammal or a bird, I couldn't find any. There aren't any out there, but there was a dragonfly that was sitting on a post. Oh, it's not there now, but it was sitting on a post. You know, we have young trees that have this wooden posts that they're strapped so that the tree won't fall over. But it's a cedar tree, actually. So it was sitting on the post and it was looking the other way. And then it flew up and it went over to the other post, and I think it was watching me with those big eyes, watching me. And so then it went over to the butterfly bush, and then over to the other butterfly bush, and then went on another post on the other side. And it kind of went back and forth the whole time. And it made me think, well, now, what are they? Oh, that's not, I've been seeing a lot of dragonflies in our yard recently. Oh, and then I did see a butterfly. Butterfly went to the butterfly bush also. That's why we planted butterfly bushes for them. I did not know that dragonflies liked butterfly bushes. And also I was wondering why, now that dragonfly, isn't it afraid of being out in the open and just sitting out in the open because of bird predators? I don't know. I don't know which birds eat dragonflies, but it did make me think of some questions, a lot of questions about things I've never thought about before. So,
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it's so cool. I know people often ask that, like you can think too, Joy, about, or Susie, sorry, about the like when people they think, gosh, this bird is like just out there singing in the open. Like, aren't they afraid that like everyone's gonna know where they are and the predators are just gonna come and like gobble them up? Like, how could they do that, you know? And I think that that sort of inspires some deep thinking on our part, you know, about why critters do what they do, why we maybe used to do some of the things we used to do as more wild humans, and our motivations. I think oftentimes we're told it's all about survival. You know, that's sort of how I think science has kind of conditioned us to believe that life is just about survival. Um, and in working with this one native elder teacher that I have gotten a chance to work with for many, many years, like he's really clear that life for people and for most wild creatures isn't just about survival and wasn't just about survival. It was about much more. And so I'll just leave it at that. I won't say any more about that, but I think the questions that you're pondering, Susie, are really rich and yeah, beautiful questions to be asking. Thanks for sharing your dragonfly story and your wasp story too. I love that you got to know its little footpath, you know? I think you might be frozen there, Susie. Would anyone else like to share a story before we head out? Yeah, go for it, Julia, please.
Well, it happens that we've had some cooler weather, especially in the mornings, which is inviting to be outside. So I've been noticing, well, it just happened. And in particular, I noticed this morning the Carolina wren was in this tree, where it often is, singing this morning. And so it kind of lent itself very well to our exercise, our activity this morning. And it brought to mind, I kind of noticed that the wrens, I don't know how many wrens I have. I mean, but let's say there's just one, hangs out in a certain area of on a certain side of my house more than others. And then so I was following its path and so on. But as I think about it, I was also noticing the crows have another area they kind of hang out in. And then there has been what I've noticed these mornings, there is a lot of bird song, in particular a robin just singing for the heck of it, I guess. And I'm wondering, well, why are you singing? You know, I know their nesting time is probably over, and so they're not trying to hide, you know, where their nest is. And I'm thinking, is it territorial, you know, this time of year? Or do birds really just sing just for the joy of singing, or just for doing that, you know, or to say, ah, I live here, this is my home. I'm wondering why there is so much bird song going on, really well into the morning, not just the dawn chorus, but well into the morning. So I have that kind of question for you, but the robin's in a different place. It's kind of like they've staked out their home, and they could be just saying, yeah, I'm home, I'm here, you know, this is where I'm going to have breakfast. And so what do you think? You're going to ask me what I think.
Well, I guess I was wondering, like, is this a question that you want an answer to, or is this a question that you want to keep pondering yourself?
I would like thoughts on it.
Mm.
I would like potential answers.
Yeah. What do other folks think? Any thoughts come to anyone else's mind before I share mine? Yeah, Nadine, please.
I don't have a question about the birds, but I love the question and will enjoy pondering it and sitting with it. But I'm thinking of my dog when he goes outside and rolls in something, whether I can smell it or not. And I was just reading something about this and, like, you know, pondering, like, well, why is that? Does it smell good? Are they trying to cover themselves? And not to, like, make anthropomorphize, but like human, we spread stuff around that we like the smell of all the time, like perfume, but just also things when things smell good. And so I've just kind of decided, like, yeah, he's just enjoying that, certainly what it looks like. So I feel like, yeah, things there are other beings than just humans enjoy other.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Thanks, Nadine. Right on. I think, Anne, did you have your hand up to share something? Yeah, go for it.
I was thinking training young, you
Oh,
know,
Tracy Young.
showing,
Interesting.
teaching them different calls,
Mm,
you
mm,
know,
cool. Hmm.
just first thought.
Yeah. Yes, that's like a thought. I won't get too into this right now. It would be something for folks to ponder further, but asking that question of when do birds learn song? So when a bird is, a juvenile and then a fledgling leaves the nest and then an immature going on its way in the world, when do birds learn songs? And I think, of course, it can be different for many different species, but just thinking about that question, like how soon after they've hatched, maybe even before they hatch for some of them, do birds begin to learn songs, and how do they learn songs? So that's a great question, Anne, to go deeper with. Anyone else want to share anything else about Julia's song question? Yeah, so Julia, for me, I think it's all of it. There is often the pattern I've noticed for folks is that we have springtime when there's just this like, wah, cacophony of song, this like much, just there's a lot of vocalizations that are happening, and we get used to hearing like all these songs, and then there's a lull, in the summertime when the summer hits, and it's just like you don't really hear as many birds anymore. There's still a dawn chorus, but it doesn't last as long, and it's just different. And then there's this moment, I feel like, in the summertime where the song picks up again and birds start to sing again like they weren't just previously. And the why, I don't know for sure. I have some ideas around it. Um, but I think I love what Anne was saying, that it's possible that it could be for, teaching the young. It could, there's no reason why other species couldn't experience joy and pleasure um, and just wanting to do something. Like, why does a flower bloom? Of course, it's like, oh, reproduction and whatever, but like, so that's sort of the deeper pondering of life, I suppose, that we would never really know the answer of. I guess you could ask the bird, why it's singing its song, and but also reestablishing and just continuing to maintain territory is an important thing for birds. So um, we do it in our own way, as humans. It's sort of like we mow our lawn in our little spot, but we won't mow our neighbor's lawn, but this is my lawn over here. I'm going to delineate this area and let you know that, like, this is my home spot. Or we put up those little stakes in the ground, So sometimes song can be considered like those stakes in the ground, where it's just like, hey, I just want you to know I'm still here, like Joe the robin is still here, and Bob the robin over there knows that Joe's still here. But if Joe didn't sing anymore, Bob would be like, sweet, I'm gonna go check out Joe's spot, and so it's this idea of like maintenance and maintaining your space. Again, it's also, maybe you can think of it as like tidying up, like sweeping the deck every day kind of a thing. Like we go outside and we sweep the leaves from the deck, maybe the birds need to do the same kind of a thing, in terms of just maintaining their space. So that's another thought about why it would be singing. So yeah, we don't really know. We just don't really know, But I love where just the questions that you're asking about it, Julia. Yeah, Claudia, please. Yeah, what do you want to share?
Yeah, I put this in the chat, but I was just remembering, I read that some scientists, they've done experiments, and they've shown that like a dopamine type chemical is released in bird brains when they sing. So I think they sing because they're happy and to become happier. For one of the many reasons.
Happier. Yeah, I mean, it sure brings joy to us, and they've found that. Well, the other thing, this is again getting into some kind of like deeper layers of life, is that I know there's different native traditions, and I think it's even been proven in science that bird song actually helps plants to grow. And so the coming of birdsong in the spring is thought to inspire the seeds to sprout and to grow. And so maybe it's an essential part of the season, and that we need the bird songs for another, for the sprouting of the corn, or who knows. I don't know what it would be, but yeah, there's that thought as well. There's this pairing and then really rich connection between the plants and the bird song. So some cool thoughts to ponder, y'all. That's a deep one and a good one to end on. Yeah, Anne, you want to say one more thing?
The woodpecker screaming. Can you hear it? It's the cat. She just walks and she's laying right here. And I think the other birds are more used to her, but it just started going nuts. It's the cat. She walked over, and I imagine that's what it was.
Whoa, wow. I'm so glad that we have like a little resolution in your story.
So it's happened twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other birds are like, oh, that's just that cat. We know how to get away from that one,
Yeah.
But the red-headed is sort of more of a stranger. This isn't its neighborhood. It's not its home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It just,
Exactly.
yeah, it's not, it lives in the woods farther around here and just comes here. So it's the cat. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool, Anne. Thank you. Oh, this is a fun one, you guys. Again, like for me, like big thanks to the hornet, whatever it is that inspired me this morning. And also there was a Carolina wren that was part of the story too. The last couple of days, at like around 2 or 3, it brings its little family here, and the little one comes in. The parents are around to feed it, and I think there's at least one young one. And again, like noticing that rhythm, it's like, oh yeah, every day so far at like 2 or 3, this family of wrens comes in and. Speaking of the wren, just sang its song. Ah, that's awesome. All right, so thank you everybody so much for coming today and for all the richness that you brought to this conversation. I'm really grateful for it. And yeah, we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Yeah, keep doing your thing. So, and keep continuing this practice and asking those questions because it's just so beautiful. All right, everybody, see you next time.
Thank you. That was
Okay,
great.
bye. Yeah, agreed.